Morning, beautiful people. Grand risings to you all. How are you this morning? It's Monday, 19th of August. Hello, beautifulness. Hello, gorgeousness. Hello, I see plenty of names already in the live chat. How lovely to see you all. Hi, everyone. Morning. Oops. Hello. Okay, none of this is supposed to be going on. Stop. There you go. Stop, stop, stop. Hello, Reba. Hello, Teresa. CHB, Wade. Grand risings to you. Let's go. I love that attitude. Let's do it, people. Tony Griffiths and Maria and Soul Sound and Derek C and Catherine and Julie and who else? Loads more. Cheryl Betts. Good morning. And Armand and Lyra Davis. Greetings all. Hope everyone had a good weekend. And Grand Rising, says Crazy Bunny. I just want to send a thank you to both Crazy Bunny and Shin, my two mods, for holding it down on Friday when I wasn't here. I was at the seaside. I was at Margate, that seaside corny town, and it was fabulous. I'm going to tell you more about that later, but I'm just really glad to be back here with you. Good morning, Dr. Moorhen. How is it in Ballymena? Hope it's lovely there. I have Irish ancestry. Poulton versus Kate McCann, the showdown, says Junior Jones. Is that on the cards, Junior? Good morning, Mark and Cavan and Jackie and oh, so many names. Merlot Crone, how are you, love? Christine, how are you? How are you all? Isn't it an interesting day? Monday, 19th of August is just 9:02 a.m. now, British summertime, and it's wonderful to be back on the live stream with you all. I want to say thank you so much to everybody who sent me, well, birthday messages, birthday gifts, just great birthday greetings. I so appreciate it. And by the way, welcome to an Mpox free show. Watch out for those nasty infection spreading headlines and news shows. You know what they're about, don't you? Just to say, so much to do on the show today. So let's not hang around, right? We'll be dealing with Lucy Letby errors admitted by the CPS. We'll be dealing with vaccine compensations, although it was very interesting to note that one British newspaper at least chose to change their headlines and to delete the amount of compensation applications have been put forward. We also have sweeping new hate laws that are being introduced by the Fabian Weffers, and new prison measures are activated as of today. We'll be discussing all of this and more. And plus, because it's still my birthday as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to be giving stuff away. I've actually got a competition. Now, don't do anything yet, because later on in the show, I will be asking you to email me at soniapoulton@sky.com, but only emails after I've given you the nod. Oh God, isn't that what creeps say? But only emails after I say, and now this is the competition. Only emails after that point will be accepted. And I will be looking for the first two. I have T-shirts to give away. And so that will be happening. What else? I saw this brilliant T-shirt and I've got to get it. And it actually says, I keep calm because I can be savage as you know what the rest of the word is. And I could really relate to that. I mean, I really could, because when I go, and I don't give a how tall you are, how wide you are, how big you are. If I'm dealing with an injustice or somebody who's trying to be brutal with me, I am ready to fight. But I have learned over the years to control myself. Yes, I have. Let's see, what else have I got? Just to say thank you so much for my birthday videos. A couple of brilliant videos that were made for me, and I'm so grateful for them. One was from Zoe and Shin, my mods. I'll put a link in the description. Shin will be joining us later in the show to share her brilliant musical talent. Very much looking forward to that. And also the other video that was brought together by darling Charlotte, who I used to work with at TNT. And she brought together this amazing video that featured people like Mike Stock from Stock Aitken and Waterman, Matt Letitia, who was obviously on Friday's show, Jasmine Birtles, Hayden Appleby, who's been a regular contributor around here, Intel Lady, bringing the Angela Rayner and Yvette Cooper vibe. So many other people. I was so absolutely chuffed. Absolute wonderful. The sort of kindness that has been shown to me just blew me away, frankly. Thank you. I very, very much appreciate it. And some people say to me, Sonia, what does it feel like being 60? And I say no different to being 59, except I feel a little bit more kick-ass than usual. And on that point, it's full moon today. Oh, yes, it is. It's a full moon today. And actually, what's interesting, because, you know, I'm a bit of a planetary alignment kind of person. I am always very interested in planetary alignments. But the last time we had a planetary alignment like this was 2020, when lockdown was happening. Now, I can't help but think there are, because you know how they love their symbolisms, right? I can't help but think my camera's just decided to do one of its funny ones. I can't help but think that they have planned all manner of things, and the announcement of MPOX might be one of them. Right. Anything else before I bring in my first guest? Just to say, this week marks the very sad 20th anniversary of the murder of Amelie Delagrange at the hands of serial killer Levi Bellfield. Yesterday, a ceremony took place on Twickenham Green. That's just down the road from me. And ace former cop Colin Sutton, who I must bring on the live stream. He's absolutely brilliant, Colin. I've talked to him many times, and he's in my Madeleine McCann documentaries. But he was the man who brought Levi Bellfield to justice, and he was given the honour, quite rightly, of laying flowers on behalf of the Metropolitan Police. There are good cops in the Metropolitan Police. You'll be surprised to know he's a former cop, though. But there are still good existing cops. Bellfield was later charged with further murders and attempted murders, including that of British schoolgirl Millie Dowler, and he is currently serving life sentences. And as I said, as of today, the British government has activated emergency measures, so-called, to ease prison overcrowding as more rioters are being sentenced for their role in the recent unrest. So what we have is across the north of England at this moment in time, there are defendants waiting for a court appearance, and they will be kept in police cells until prison space is available. The system is known as Operation Early Dawn. It was activated today. It was previously used by the Conservative government in May. The government said that its action to, quote, to tackle violent thuggery on our streets has, quote, exacerbated long-standing capacity issues in our prisons. Yeah, that's because you've been jailing people for nonsense like stealing bottles of water. But not actually jailing nonces. More than 1,000 people have been arrested in connection with the riots and the protests. And the Crown Prosecution Service says more than 470 people have been charged with offences so far. The prisons that are currently affected are in the North East and Yorkshire, Cumbria and Lancashire and Manchester, Merseyside and Cheshire regions. And what they'll be doing is they will be, under these measures, defendants will only be summoned to a magistrate's court when a space in prison is ready for them. So they are being taken to magistrate's courts on the certain understanding that they are being imprisoned. That don't sound like justice to me, right? They have, as I say, they're being kept in police holding cells, and anyone they consider who poses a risk will not be bailed. Wait a second. So people like Hugh Edwards, who I absolutely consider to pose a risk, they're bailed, aren't they? People like that. But somebody who has behaved like an absolute abysmal idiot on the street, they will not be bailed because they are considered a risk to the public. But are they really, though? Who is more of a risk to the public? I think a person who watches child abuse images and makes and exchanges them is more of a risk to the public than someone who is angry and frustrated at what the globalists are doing to us. And that is no justification for what took place out there on the street. There's a lot of stuff which was absolutely abhorrent, but does it deserve a prison sentence? Absolutely not. Prison Minister Lord Timpson said, "We inherited a justice system in crisis and exposed to shocks. As a result, we have been forced into making difficult but necessary decisions to keep it operating. He said the emergency measures, which is to let people out, will manage the pressure felt in some parts of the country. And what they're doing is they're aiming to ease overcrowding in prisons by letting out people who have served 50% to 40% of their time. They claim that this won't be people who have been in prison for sex offences, terrorism, domestic abuse, or other violent offences. But we shall see, because they're already not imprisoning people who should be imprisoned. So we shall see, right? And last week, the government confirmed that those involved in the recent unrest would not be excluded from its plans to release some inmates from jail early. So what they might be doing is that ripple effect fear, right? Let's imprison them for a day or two and then send them back out again. It is all about creating fear. I think we can all agree on that to a certain degree. Let me welcome in my first guest, because I'm absolutely delighted to have him with us, simply because it's been such an extraordinary turnaround of events. Good morning, Professor Richard Gill.
Good morning, Sonia Poulton. Great to see you.
Okay. Well, even better to see you, Richard, under improved circumstances since the last time that you joined us on here. And Richard, of course, is somebody who's been campaigning pretty much from the get-go on behalf of Lucy Letby. Lucy Letby, of course, is a former nurse. She has been imprisoned for the murder of 7 infants and also imprisoned for the attempted murder of 7 infants. And the fact is that many people, although they were heavily demonized at the beginning, many people were deeply alarmed by these convictions, but a sort of silencing had taken place around it, didn't it, Richard, where people couldn't talk about it, and like we couldn't find out about what was taking place in terms of her appeal, which was denied. But my, oh my, what a difference a month makes, right, Richard? So what we have is the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, admitting errors in the Lucy Letby case. Richard, tell us about it. What on earth is going on?
What about it? Yes, what is going on? Well, this is about door swipe data. So a number of the cases of the prosecution against Lucy are based against her apparently being alone with a baby at a moment when some collapse or something unexpected happens. And this fact, this was a deduction based on looking at door swipe data. So you have a card and then you can get in or out. Now it seems that the police have mixed up the entrance times and the exit times. Oh dear, right. I mean, and that sort of changes things. And this became known only during the retrial for baby K, which was
right.
An appeal put in by the prosecution, right? They wanted to put another nail in the coffin. Right, let's get that one, because the original jury had not come to a conclusion on baby K. Now, baby K is a very interesting case because it's basically Lucy's word against Dr. Ravi Jayaram's word.
Who is a central character in this story, isn't he?
He is. I would say there are 2 central characters at the hospital, well, apart from Lucy, and they are Ravi Jayaram and Dr. Stephen Breary. And they are the 2 who ran to the police in somewhat desperation, I think, when the report of the Royal, RCPCH, Royal Commission for Pediatrics and Child Health, right? They were called into the hospital to investigate this suspicious, surprising, worrying increase in numbers of deaths. And 6 of them, I think, came, 6 pediatricians, senior pediatricians came to the hospital and investigated all kinds of things. And they heard about the claims of Breary and Jayaram that Lucy Letby was was the rotten apple, and she was always there when the bad things happened. Okay, then now their report came out, I think beginning February 2017, and it really slammed the doctors, the senior doctors. They were basically the main bad guys there. They were hardly ever there to begin with. There should have been like 2 ward rounds a day, but there were maybe 2 ward rounds a week. And those pediatricians were almost never there, and the young doctors didn't dare to call them. And when they did call them, they didn't come in, and stuff like that. Now, more and more and more besides. So one of them has said, when interviewed on TV after the trial, you know, proud that the witch had now been put away.
Yeah.
When that report came out, we know it was either us or them. You know, it was either us or her who was going to lose their jobs. And they rushed to the police. They convinced the policeman in just 10 minutes. They have told us, or he's told us, I forget which. Like, it just took 10 minutes. They had a quick look at this spreadsheet with, you know, suspicious event, which nurses are there, Lucy, 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 Lucy. This spreadsheet put together by those doctors, version after version, the list slowly grew longer. Right. Well, so this is very exciting. This is very exciting. And the hearing, the retrial for Baby K, the evidence which was given there basically showed that Lucy didn't do anything, and that the evidence was brought to the court was wrong. But you see, the judge instructed the jury. He basically said, as you know, she's already been convicted of so many murders and so many attempted murders, and the numbers. I'm not sure your numbers were right, Sonia, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
7 and 7.
Okay, 7 and 7 sounds good, but maybe it's 7 and 8. Well, maybe it became 7 and 8.
Yes, no, I think it became, because it was 7 and 6, to my understanding. It was 6 attempted murders, and then it became 7. But I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me. But it's around, right, it's around those numbers, yeah.
It's around that, okay. So the judge actually told the jury, well, actually, as you all know, and that, as actually the prosecution barrister kept repeating during the trial, as you know, Lucy has been convicted of
extraordinary. And the thing is, the whole point about a retrial, of course, is it's supposed to be a new trial, right? It is not supposed to be dependent on what has come previously, right? But that jury, they were sort of encouraged in a certain direction. But
they were told, it was more than encouraged. They were told.
They were explicitly told.
Yeah, they were
extraordinary.
Instructed. If you trust the previous convictions, then really you don't have to listen to what we're saying now, because you can find her guilty.
How can justice be served? But the thing is that in a very odd way, that retrial has served her well, right?
It certainly has.
And that's the curiosity about it, because what it's done, Richard, is it's revealed the incompetence or something else of the police and those involved, right? And what I've actually seen, I don't think I've ever seen this in like 30 years as a journalist, and that is the major support that is now happening around these convictions. So what you have is many newspapers who are sort of standing up and being counted, columnists, members of parliament, celebrity doctors, various other people. It must be a pleasant surprise after being demonized for so long, Richard.
It's a pleasant.
People like you were demonized as proper cranks, right?
Right. I was a sick and deluded conspiracy theorist. Sometimes now the Times is still holding up, right? I'm one of those armchair conspiracy theorists.
Oh, is that what they call you? Right.
The armchair conspiracy theorists are, myself, other senior statisticians, a senior, highly respected neonatologist, a very highly respected psychologist, a highly respected senior forensic scientist. I don't know if I've got them all, but I mean, like, from every part of the spectrum of sciences which is involved, really powerful people are speaking out now. Okay, and the Times is clinging on. Armchair conspiracy theorists. And actually they wrote in the Sunday Times, well, of course, the CCRC doesn't have to reopen the case now, because the jury there was a lot of evidence, and the jury were not necessarily convinced by this bit of it. So they are really getting pretty desperate, I would say.
Or one has to wonder whether there's some compromise taking place there in the background. But here's the thing.
Probably.
So I sought some advice on this. I sought some legal advice because I wanted to know what was the position in terms of Lucy being able to appeal after the CPS have actually admitted making a mistake. And you and I had a brief conversation yesterday, and I'm like, surely this is now on the road to overturning because this is looking increasingly like an unsafe conviction. And you were like, yeah, but I got a funny feeling they might hold on. And actually, Richard, I think you might be right. Because what I've been told is that even though that discrepancy has been admitted, it doesn't automatically mean that that entitles it to a fresh appeal, right? It doesn't automatically, it should. It really should, because actually, if they've got that wrong, what else have they got wrong? And what that actually tells us about the door swiping is they were in a rush to charge that young woman. That's what they were. They were in a rush to charge her. So what do you feel is going to happen now? Because it feels like a tsunami of people standing up and saying there's something wrong with this conviction.
Well, what we do know is that the CCRC, which is the possible route, is totally dysfunctional.
Yes.
You know, it's run by a former executive of a biscuit company, like a biscuit, and is run like a biscuit company, and has successfully managed to increase the rejection rate and cut the costs. And everybody knows this. So really, there's no point in going to the CCRC. But the CCRC was put there by Parliament and government because of severe problems back when it was first put there. And Parliament and government can step in again, it seems to me. I mean, it's absolutely clear the CCRC is not fit for purpose.
Absolutely.
I think we have David Davies doing what he's doing and finding out more and more about the case, and he'll be finding out more and more. The Thirlwell inquiry will bring out more surprises, I'm confident.
That's in September.
At some point, the Home Secretary is going to step in, or the Secretary.
She's going to have to. She's going to have to, because otherwise it will look problematic on her. But here's the thing, Richard, why you are a particularly excellent voice on this is because you have been involved with other nurses who have been accused of similar things to do with Lucy, and they've been exonerated. Tell people, for those who don't know.
Right. Well, I learned about serial killer nurse cases from my experience in the Netherlands with the Dutch nurse Lucy Letby, who was arrested in 2001. By 2005, it had gone all the way to the Supreme Court, and she was in jail for life, full life, basically. At that point, some whistleblowers started making noises, and journalists started getting interested, and changed public opinion, because public opinion was, she's an evil witch, you know, good that she's locked up, and let her stay there. And it took another 5 years. So it was like 5 years going up, and then 5 years, or 5 years going down, and then 5 years going up. In 2010, she was completely exonerated. And I was involved in the last 5 years, explaining to people about the statistics which had been used. Somebody had done a stupid probability calculation, coming out with a number 1 in 342 million, which was nonsense. But it made everybody believe it can't be a coincidence. That this was the chance of what would have happened if it had been a coincidence. So it wasn't a coincidence. Right now, from there it went. Because of my activities on that case, I got known in the world, or famous or infamous, and I got involved in an Italian case, and together with an Italian colleague, we got an Italian nurse out of jail. Her name is Daniela Poggiali. Now, these two cases, Lucia de Berg, Daniela Poggiali, and Lucy Letby, they are all just the same. They all start in the same way, in a stressed hospital where things are going wrong, where there's a bit of a weird nurse who's a bit troublesome, making a bit too much noise, complaining about things which are wrong, disagreeing with the doctors. Okay, nurses never disagree with doctors.
No.
But I mean, good doctors learn from nurses, but bad doctors ignore nurses. That's the difference. Then I also got involved in a British case, Ben Geen, and I mean, one of my motivations for working for Lucy Letby is because I want to help get Ben Geen out of jail, because I had already tried and failed, but it taught me something about the British legal system, which is pretty dysfunctional, let us say. I mean, it's very good at putting people in jail.
Yes, excellent. Especially if you're out on the streets making a noise. Not so much if you're a paedophile. But so here's the thing, and I say that in no joke whatsoever, it is a statement of fact. And so here's the thing, though, Richard, is what we do know about the Countess of Chester Hospital, particularly that unit, was it was a failing unit, right? Yeah. There was regular outbreaks of infection. There appeared to be issues with water supply. There were all manner of things happening. Now, you are a scientist and a statistician, right? And one of the things, obviously, they used that sheet, didn't they? Oh, Lucy was on here, Lucy. What are the chances, though? Like, how does it stand up statistically?
Well, it doesn't stand up at all. It doesn't stand up at all. The numbers, raw numbers, are not important. What is important is rates. Numbers of events per hour worked. Now, we know that Lucy Letby worked about 40% of the time on that unit. 40% of the hours, right? All the time. Talking about all the time.
Lot.
And so every baby who was on that, who stayed alive on that unit for a couple of days, was in the care of Lucy at some time or other. So, of course, Lucy was there when all those events happened, or when the events happened.
Right.
Medical experts will tell you that collapses and crashes on a neonatal intensive care unit are like 1 an hour or something like that. I mean, it's just happening all the time. Alarm bells go, nurses rush in, take a look, switch some, press some buttons or something, and everything is okay again. This happens again and again and again. And if their babies are in a very poor state, they're going to be complete collapses and necessity to resuscitate again and again and again. So I think it is just it's just a coincidence that Lucy is there so many times when the bad things happened. Well, the things which have been labelled to be bad things by an investigation which was directed all the time at blaming Lucy for what was going on. The doctors went to the police and told them their suspect and gave them the first version of that spreadsheet. Well, actually, the second version of that spreadsheet, because the first one they'd made earlier and shown it to management. And the one we saw in court was version 3 or something. So the whole investigation and trial was all focused on nailing bad things on that nurse.
Right. And you can get any result. As a scientist, I studied psychology, so I had to deal with certain data as well. But as a scientist, you can get any result you want if you focus it in a certain direction, right? And the thing is I think ultimately this police investigation is in very serious trouble. Okay. Yeah. And probably the people who informed it are as well. But at this moment in time, I'm so glad that the focus is very much on getting, some sort of justice for Lucy Letby, because I'm pretty damn certain, obviously I can't know 100%, but I'm pretty damn certain, based on the people I've talked to, the evidence I've seen, that this woman is not guilty, and she was a scapegoat for what was going wrong at that hospital.
I'm pretty damn certain too. Yes. I mean, I can do a Bayesian probability calculation and explain to you why I think it's 1,000,000 to 1 that she's innocent. Is
that complex?
No, it's not very complex. It's just a question of, first of all, starting off with the fact that it's 100 times more likely to be a failed NHS neonatal unit than a serial killer. I mean, you just have to know how often you have serial killer nurses. Not very often. How often is there a major scandal? Very often. Right. So we start off with it being 100 to 1 more likely she's innocent. Now, then the police investigate for 7 years or something, and they find no hard evidence. They find no evidence, basically. That strengthens the belief that she's innocent. Now, then there's what we know about herself. It's more than just seems. There's absolutely no evidence of any psychopathic or weird tendencies in the poor girl. None whatsoever. So your strength of your conviction that she's innocent goes up again. Well, add a few more things. What we know about the bungling police and the lying, experts who said things which are just contrary to published science. as well as being contrary to the rules for giving scientific evidence. I mean, it all stacks up and stacks up and stacks up, and you can do a
right. Well, and it reaches the point where you can no longer ignore it. And I hope that I do truly believe we are getting to that stage now.
Yeah.
I actually believe that she is very highly likely going to be one of the first high profile convictions to be overturned. I have a belief in that, Richard, and nobody is going to throw me from that at this moment in time. I want to thank you very much.
That's confirmation bias, Sonia.
It is, I know. Shame on me. Shame on me.
On
There's
you.
me telling you I studied.
Keep an open mind to new information, but I mean,
always. But based on what I know right now, it seems absolutely. But I'm not. So I've never said that I know 100% she's innocent. What I know is there's something wrong with that investigation, and it deserves looking at. And there was something wrong with the appeal system. All of those things are based on fact. And I also think that there is a bias against her where people don't want to look again at it as well. I think she's been so heavily demonized, but you're absolutely right. No confirmation bias around here, people. We mustn't do that. Right, no. Richard, I'm so grateful for you joining us, and I'm so grateful for you sticking at this as well. And thank God there is somebody like you out there fighting for these nurses, because it is so easy for them to be scapegoated. Everybody, this is Professor Richard Gill. No doubt he'll be catching up with us again when we hear more updates on the case of Lucy Letby. Take good care of yourself, Richard. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Sonia. You too.
Take care. Isn't he lovely? I do. Yes, he's lovely. Yes, he is. I think that is absolutely an unsafe conviction. But I agree with him. And I want to say good morning to HRH on X, say morning, Sonia. Lucy Letby was the scapegoat for failures in the NHS, and egotistical doctors, they need to be exposed. HRH is not impressed. I'm going to welcome in my next guest because it's going to be one of those mornings, fast morning. And here he is. There he is. Good morning, Simon.
Hello, Sonia. How are you?
Well, I'm great. Lovely to have you with us, everybody. This is, you're a doctor, aren't you? Dr. Simon Elmer. You're a historian, you're an author, you're many things, actually. You have a huge list of credits to your name. And you also wrote a book about the Great Reset, didn't you? Not that one, by the way, not that other one.
And not the one by Klaus Schwab, no.
Yes, that's right. Not that other one. But the thing is, I mean, obviously, I followed your work anyway. And, but you ran this incredible quote the other week. And I just thought, that has this picture been photoshopped? Right. It was a George Orwell quote. You know the one I mean. And It was Keir Starmer at the podium. And it talked about how fascism would not be basically thugs in boots anymore. It would come at us in a certain way. In fact, exactly the depiction of Sir Keir Rodney Starmer. Have we arrived at the place that George Orwell was talking about, Simon?
Yes, Orwell's quote, which he wrote back in the 30s, was that when English fascism arrives, it won't be called fascism for a start, but it will be an anglicized, slimy version of fascism with cultured police instead of Nazi thugs. I think it's interesting that the way that Starmer has reacted to the events over the last few weeks in this highly authoritarian style. The photograph that you're talking of him sort of standing at this podium with the British flags behind him, the Union Jack, and he also had the lion and the unicorn. It's something we've been accustomed to because Boris Johnson presented himself that way under lockdown when he was making these edicts, which hadn't gone through Parliament, which were dictates. And Orwell says instead of the swastika, we'll have the lion and the unicorn. And I think that image kind of captured something about that. I think more seriously than that, Starmer is, I also said I think he's probably the most dangerous politician this country's ever seen.
Wow.
I think he's more dangerous than Tony Blair, who was dangerous enough.
Wow.
He took us into a war on completely trumped up, fabricated evidence. I think he's more destructive than Thatcher was. Some people disagree with that, but I think Thatcher's privatization, not just of public services, but of the government process itself, has led us to where we are now. One of the most interesting things about Starmer, who is not this, as he constantly says, the son of a toolmaker. He's a member of the Trilateral Commission.
That's right.
He sits on the King's Privy Council. He's a real establishment figure, far more than, say, someone like Boris Johnson, who's always been a bit of an outsider. I think it was last year, maybe the year before, he was asked whether his allegiance was to Westminster, meaning the parliamentary system, or to Davos, which is where the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum comes from. And he said without hesitation, oh, Davos. Oh, definitely. Now, Davos is the World Economic Forum it's a think tank for global capitalism. It's made up of about 1,200, it's growing all the time, of the largest corporations in the world, information technology countries, and in particular financial institutions. It has absolutely no democratic mandate from anyone at all. It is directly trying to, quite openly, subvert the constitutional sovereignty of countries, including the UK. I think right there and then, Starmer should have been never hold office again, certainly not as a politician, certainly not as our prime minister. He has been elected by the constituents who voted him in as an MP, then by the members of the Labour Party, and ultimately, under a curious process, to be the Prime Minister of the UK. But he was only elected with 20% of the electorate, only 20% of the electorate. That means 80% of the electorate didn't vote for him. And I think part of his very authoritarian, bullish presentation of himself is to try and make up for the fact that he has absolutely no mandate to do anything at all. And he's going to rule, it seems quite clearly, with the truncheon. He is himself, he was the head of the Crown Prosecution Service for many years. He's worked with the police, he knows them very, very well. And he presented himself in a video in a kind of police command center, I presume the Metropolitan Police Service, in which he was surrounded by videos spying on the British public and sort of pointing to it. And then he follows this up with saying, we will come after you with the full force of the law. Given this, I think what Orwell said about the nature of English fascism when it arrives, and I've written a book called The Road to Fascism about how we got here, this looks like fascism to me. The kind of laws, the Home Office has just announced, although it must be changing all the time, that they've made over 1,000 arrests of what they call criminals. Now, under British law, and for most laws, you're innocent until you're found guilty. Right. So they're making a presumption here that these people on arrest are already guilty. We're seeing a collapse of what democracy is predicated on, at least in principle, which is the separation of the government, the legislature, in our case, the parliament, and the law courts. The courts now are being quite clearly directed to prosecute people not under the law, but on the wishes of ministers, and particularly of Keir Starmer himself. The last year, the Online Safety Act 2023 came into law, and there was lots of opposition to it. It was said to make online places safety for children to go on, pornography.
They always use children.
It was safe for children. That's not at all how it's being used. Under Section 179 of the Online Safety Act, a person commits an offence, and this is the legislation at which people are now being surveyed and arrested for their online comments. A person commits an offence if they send a message that conveys information that that person knows to be false, and at the time of sending it, the person intended the message to cause what it calls non-trivial psychological or physical harm. Now, this is an extraordinarily loose bit of legislation. You have to.
It's the life out of me.
It's so broad, and that's kind of how this sort of legislation works. The courts would have to prove knowledge on behalf of the person that they didn't know this was false. Which, let's face it, nowadays with the huge flood of misinformation and disinformation, primarily from the government itself and the media, that's almost impossible to establish. And also intention, that in sending a post, they intended to cause harm, psychological something. So it's so broad that it's not really a law that I think, I'm not a lawyer, although I read a lot of legislation. It'd be very hard to prove this. What it does is it opens up a very broad area of ambiguity in which courts can implement ministers' wishes, and particularly the wishes of Keir Starmer. I think for all these reasons, he's a very, very dangerous politician, and he's come in with the backing, with the vote of a very small minority. He calls the people marching or demonstrating against the kind of the things that have been going on recently about their concerns about mass immigration, about the effects it may or may not be having on the fabric of our community, on the rise of violence, the rise of crime, which we've seen statistics published by the government about. And he calls these people, which is basically the white English working class, and not only the white English working class. Yeah. There's lots of people who've lived here for many years who are also concerned about immigration. And he's dismissed us as a far-right, unthinking thugs, a minority. He's actually the minority. The people who voted for him, the people we see standing up, carrying banners saying, refugees welcome here, they're the minority. They're a highly politicized and organized minority,
Yeah.
but they're the minority, and they are imposing Keir Starmer's dictates upon us. And as he made very clearly, Starmer is not governing for this country, certainly not for the people of this country. He is governing for the people who, again, very openly said, I mean, of course, the World Economic Forum, that they have infiltrated the cabinets of the world. Klaus Schwab says this very openly.
Yeah, he admitted it, didn't he, that they could do that they could infiltrate cabinets.
He admitted that they
don't hide anything, do they? Not in terms of what they're doing.
He admitted that he had done it already, and people looked at people like Justin Trudeau and what's her name, Chrystia Freeland, who's the Deputy Prime Minister and Head of Finance of the Canadian government under Trudeau, is one of the most senior figures in the WF. Now, how can this possibly be compatible? If this isn't a conflict of interest, I haven't seen it. Keir Starmer himself went to the Davos meeting last year. He complained that Rishi Sunak hadn't gone away, hadn't attended, and he made it very clear for the WF that he would do their bidding. He said that he would have opened up much more communication between what is a corporate think tank and the United Kingdom. Ultimately, what this argument about this debate, or rather the lack of debate that's happening about immigration, because it's been shut down by new applications of legislation that already existed, is the corporatization of our democracy. We can see this right away at the moment with the World Economic or the World Health Organization. It's an agency of the UN, the United Nations, and it is very ferociously lobbied by pharmaceutical company and organizations like the Bill and Melinda
We're so shocked.
And they've now declared that there's yet another pandemic coming along, monkeypox.
Yes.
And they're saying, you have to, start surveying opposition to this. You have to, start taking so-called medical measures and stuff. And it's very hard to see that, the government won't follow that recommendation. It's written into the pandemic treaty, of which we are potential signatories. I'm not sure if that's actually gone through yet.
No, well, it's gone backwards and forwards, hasn't it? And they've done amendments and various other things. But so the thing is that when you actually said that you believe he is potentially, if not the most dangerous prime minister, I think everybody, well, certainly me and certainly other people that I said that to, they automatically went to Tony Blair. But you've just given exactly your reasons why you believe that as well. But what is so deeply concerning is, I think you're absolutely right, is the kind of soft glove approach that he comes to us with. And that's always dangerous, isn't it? It throws us off. It's like we know exactly what the Sun newspaper is about, but the Guardian manages to get away still with it's the same kind of thing, isn't it? It's that same kind of thing. And I think that's really disconcerting. I was looking at some of the convictions that have taken place, by the way. They are downright scary. This one man, Wayne O'Rourke, he's been given 3 years for posting on his Twitter, "Hold the line, Sunderland lads, go on." Like basic stuff, 3 years. And so here's the thing, though. Do you think the aim is to chill us all into just behaving? Because it is untenable in the long term. They cannot keep it. Well, we know we're being told today the new measures are coming in place today. And so now they've got to a stage where they're having to hold people in police cells before they can even take them to the magistrates. Because, as you say, it's now a foregone conclusion that these people are automatically guilty. They get to the magistrates and they can't go to the magistrates unless there's a place in prison waiting for them. That's where we are. That's the new measures today. That's extraordinary.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of, it does seem unsustainable. You can't arrest an entire population. We've seen with authoritarian and even totalitarian regimes in the past, and we're moving into that. That you can't imprison an entire society. It would be pointless. But you can terrorize them. I think the sort of videos we've seen of what appear to be very close cropped images of judges handing out sentences to people saying, you said, I think there was some guy who said something like, this is going to come into a village or a town near you, which doesn't sound like an incitement to violence. And this man is sort of saying, but in doing so, blah, 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 blah. The other thing that's just come out is, what's her name, has just issued new legislation. Yvette Cooper, yeah, sort of saying that now, I mean, the headline is that misogyny now is going to be defined as terrorism.
Yeah.
But it's actually a whole lot of other things. It's what they call extremist ideas or extremist attitudes. Now, we have to go back a few years to understand what happened here. In 2015, there was the Counter-Terrorism and Security Act. Now, post 9/11 and post 7/7, there was a huge range of terrorism acts made into British law. I think there were about 20 in 10 years. But in 2015, it made a statutory duty was placed on police, education and health institutions, and also local authorities to identify citizens they believe hold extremist views, counter what the government referred to, but it didn't define it. In the legislation, they didn't define this. Again, it's open, very ambiguous, but what they called counter to fundamental British values. Now, this was ostensibly passed into law to counter the threat of, I guess, Islamic fundamentalism, if you want to call it that, recruiting terrorists in the UK. That's not how it's being used. In February 2023, last year, it was revealed that the government's counter-terrorism scheme called Prevent, this is about a kind of getting in and identifying people quickly. It identified as indicators of this kind of extremism, that is counter to fundamental British values, the reading of some of the most famous authors in English history, in English, including Chaucer, Shakespeare, Milton, Locke. Edmund Burke, I think, is interesting because he's one of the founding philosophers of British conservatism. Tennyson, Kipling, Lewis Tolkien, and most Orwellian of all, George Orwell himself.
Wow.
I think Orwell would have appreciated the irony of being
Yes.
identified as someone who, is an extremist, and having this. And I think Yvette Cooper's legislation, or this new declaration, I don't know if it's new legislation or new applications of it, or it's going to be statutory changes to it. I think this is a continuation of the use of identifying something which is an exterior threat of terrorism as a way of surveying, controlling, and punishing any opposition to the government within the country itself.
I think that is exactly where we are. And what was interesting, of course, is we've seen this rash of new measures, new bills that they've been pushing for over the last 2 years, which is about silence in dissent, about stopping freedom to assemble, silence in dissent, and various other things. And I thought what was interesting is I trawled back through Yvette Cooper's old speeches, and I found one from the Fabian Society of 2019, where she outlines almost identical what she's doing now. And I thought that was very interesting. And Elaine, one of our viewers, good morning to you, Elaine. Elaine wanted me to talk about the Fabian Society, which I will be later. But obviously, when you talk about Edmund Burke being a founding father of conservatism, the Fabian Society has a huge influence on our political system, doesn't it?
Yeah, I saw someone put up the other day, I think all the top figures in the cabinet, I think all but 3 or something like that, and all the senior ones are members of the Fabian Society.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So Yvette Cooper, 100%, Keir Starmer, what's the deputy called? Angela Rayner. They are all 3 Fabians for a start.
Yeah. The Labour Party has, I think all parties do, but they have sort of parties within parties. The Labour always says that it's a broad church. It's become a much more narrow and fundamentalist church these days. But people sort of support it. The kind of the people who are out on the streets carrying placards saying refugees welcome, the SWP and so on, they would certainly not get into the Fabian Society, I don't think. It's a party within it. I think the key thing is that in the result of this, in the wake of this enormous shock that has spread across the UK, in the wake of the murders and attempted murders up in Southport, Keir Starmer has very cynically used this to implement, I would say, the next phase of the Great Reset, which has been promised for a long time. He said explicitly that facial recognition, which has been trialed, is now going to be rolled out. He says that digital identity, I think digital identity will undoubtedly be now used as a preventative measure, that you need to prove your identity before you get online. So there'll be no anonymous accounts. What that actually means is they'll have complete control over what we say and do. Online censorship will obviously be racked up. And I think, you've had members of the House of Lords, another unelected body, calling for sort of lockdowns if there's ever any threat of that, or of any demonstrations at all. So he's really given away his hand, I think. He is definitely someone who's very close to, it appears, to Tony Blair.
Yes.
He hasn't yet started a war. He hasn't yet fabricated a war, but I think
only a matter of time. He's only been in place for a month.
I mean, he's undoubtedly, Starmer's, he's declared that he's going to support Israel for as long as it takes, and Ukraine as well. So he's never opposed anything that's happened over the last 4 years. But I think the real war that's happening now is the war against the British people themselves. Wow. And he is waging against this on the behalf of the 20% of the electorate who actually elected him to power, but far more dangerous than them. I would call them useless idiots, to use this common phrase. He's waging war against us on behalf of the corporate bodies who make up the World Economic Forum. And they're the real danger to the sovereignty of this country.
What a sobering statement, Simon. Our Prime Minister is at war with the British people, and I couldn't agree more, frankly. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Very much appreciate it. You are obviously an author. We're going to put links to your books in the description so people can catch up with what you're saying, but very much appreciate your take on this. And yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he just, like, on a gut level, I just feel bad about him, you know, the way that he tries to become so incredibly relatable. My father was a tool maker. You know, we used to sit around the table working out how to pay bills for our telephone. Mate, I came from poverty. We didn't have a telephone. That was for rich people. Telephones were for rich people. Right. Anyway, listen, take good care of yourself, Simon.
Okay.
Lovely to have you with us. Have a
I'm still
brilliant
keeping
week,
it.
everybody. Simon Elmer. Take care,
Bye, Sonia.
Simon. Wonderful. Wonderful. What a fantastic overview of what is taking place. Like, absolutely brilliant. I knew he'd be brilliant. I did. But some of the stuff is insane, right? Elaine, I'm going to come back to your email about the Fabian Society because I just you wanted to know a bit more about them, and I do talk about them extensively. But I did find that speech from Yvette Cooper, who is now, oddly enough, the Home Secretary, and she basically outlined in 2019 everything that we're seeing now. I am already bringing in my next guest because it's that kind of morning. How are you in the chat there? How are you all doing? Sure, you're fabulous as ever. How are you? Goodness me. It's a busy live stream this morning. Yes, wonderful to have you with us. Hello there, Ben.
Hi there, Sonia. How you doing?
Great, thank you. Wonderful to have you with us, everybody. It is Ben Freeman from Video Production News, and you may not have heard of them before, but after this, you will know more about them, right?
I very much doubt they would have heard of us, Sonia.
Hey, we all have to grow from somewhere, Ben. We all have to grow from somewhere. Tell us about Video Production News.
Well, you're a journalist as well, so you'll remember back in the day we used to have local rags, and they used to tell the crime news.
Yes.
And sadly, the local rags have gone now, which is I always get very upset about that, but costs.
I started off on local newspapers. I think it's a fantastic grounding for a journalist if you're serious about journalism.
Agreed. I was basically, I'm an old school court hack. I'm a shorthand typist. And we had lots of people saying they missed that. They wanted the crime news. They wanted it back. So we set off to sort of put it back into one space for them, get people in the courts, doing the shorthand again, and getting the actual crime stories out there, which we've started to do. And now we've got Birmingham has just come online with Jason. We've got another lady out who's doing the Black Country. We've got a lady coming on in the West Country, and we've got another lady coming on in Manchester who's going to be doing the same thing. I'm not saying we're going to give you all the news, but we're going to give you the court reports and what's happening, and maybe a bit of a legal analysis as they go along.
I was reading your site yesterday, and actually there's loads of great court reports on there, stuff that you won't necessarily find. Yeah, yes, there is. Don't doubt what you're doing. And but stuff you wouldn't necessarily find, and also analysis that you wouldn't necessarily find in legacy media, because obviously we know that legacy media is largely bought. We know that, and compromised, and they all sing from the same hymn sheet, which is why what you and I do is so important. And one of the reports that I was reading was to do with Sir Mark Rowley. Now, Sir Mark Rowley, of course, the most senior cop in England and Wales, and has been saying lots of very totalitarian things of late following the protests/riots. And one of the things that he said, of course, was he was talking about, I'm going to paraphrase him now, about how just because what you are doing online might be overseas, don't think that you're out of my reach. And you actually did this sort of analysis about how feasible that was. Talk to us about that.
Well, I mean, it was a bit basic, really, but I just felt that I always think that the law should be accessible to everybody, and I think we've lost that along the way. So in that one, I just wanted to let people know there was a lot of guff being talked about it, that he was trying to get Elon Musk out of America and things like that. But the basic law and logic on it said that wasn't going to happen, because if you're looking at extradition law and Class A, there's no chance of that happening, because the law has to be broken in both countries. And because of the First Amendment and freedom of speech, that would never happen in America. So people were just making a story out of no story at all. But however, I felt that perhaps if you actually analyze it from that perspective, you might be able to see that he's actually after other culprits and it was aimed at other people. Maybe not what people want to hear, but that's the legal analysis of it. So it couldn't be Elon Musk. We shouldn't be talking about. We should be talking about what his other ulterior motives were. That was where it came from.
And the thing is, though, is that you highlight several points which I think are really important, and that is, you say it's possible that the remarks could be used to serve as a psychological tactic, which was designed to sow uncertainty amongst his targets. It's a chilling effect. What they've been saying will have a chilling effect, right?
That's right. I mean, I don't have many conspiracy theories. Most of mine is straight reporting. But, people who know me know that I've been long involved with the Andrew Tate case and been following that along as we go. And Andrew Tate was one of the main, we actually had sources that told us that the killing in Liverpool was nothing to do with Islam or anything to do from word go. So from within about 2 hours, we knew it wasn't anything to do with that. And Andrew Tate.
You're talking about the Southport 3 girls, aren't you?
Yeah,
Yes.
Sadly, yes. And everybody was out there. And Andrew Tate goes straight out from his whatever sports car he's driving at the time, puts this statement out saying it's Islam, stirring up hate, stirring up this. And you've been talking about the convictions, and I do feel like you that they're too heavy and too harsh. But this one was stirred up out of false news, and I don't agree with that either. And I don't agree that we should have reached this level of violence, because it does nobody on our side and the alt media any good whatsoever. It just tags us as far right and everything else. But I think this was aimed at the Andrew Tates of this world, who to be honest, is going to be ending up in either Rahova prison in Romania, or he's going to run for Russia, which is my big conspiracy theory.
Really? You think that?
I get attacked for that, but even Matthew Jury, the lawyer for some of the his UK alleged victims, he has come out and said that. And I've seen some of my video reports on that. So it's what else has he got left to look forward to, really? I mean, the conviction is going to go forward. It's a jury. It's not a jury trial. It's a judge trial. I'm going to be there when it starts to kick off. I've been sponsored to go over, and just got to keep VPN in London and wherever. But I've got people helping me. So what's he got? A cell in Rahova for at least 8 years, and then he's going to be nobody by that time. They're going to take all his money, and then when they're finished with him they're going to ship him back here. But remember, Tate is good, and Tommy Robinson are old muckers from Luton, aren't they?
Were they old friends?
Yeah, very old friends. They're still.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, they're still communicating. Yeah. So I think this was a warning to Tommy Robinson and Tate that we're coming for you and other patriots abroad.
The thing is, though, if that is the case, I have to say that Tate is a useful idiot, because I mean, he's not an unintelligent individual, right? No. People can say what they want about him, but I was very cross when people were putting out the false information about saying it was somebody called Ali Azai or whatever. And I actually sent messages to friends saying, come on now, this is not okay, what you're doing here. And I was angry about that. And also, and they say, obviously, they claim that it triggered all the riots and all manner of things. And it would definitely have added fuel to the fire. I'm in no doubt about that whatsoever. And I think that that's just irresponsible BS, frankly. But I have to wonder whether Andrew Tate is a useful idiot working against us.
I just do legal analysis on the case. Legally, he's done for on that case. I mean, get innocent until proven guilty, always.
Yes.
But looking, I've been through. I mean, I was there when they brought in the evidence, and they had to bring it in on a pallet on a forklift. There's that much of it.
No.
I'll send you a picture.
When is it being heard?
Oh God, I'm an old hack at Romanian justice. I've done mafia trials over there. I'm not like you. I don't do all this exciting stuff. I'm the guy sitting there with a short.
I would hardly say my stuff is exciting, but I take your point. Court reporting is hard. I've done it. It's hard work. It really is, and
we have to do shorthand and verbatim shorthand.
Yes, and it's really apparent from your writing that you're prolific and proficient at court reporting as well, because of the detail that you know is important that is often left out of newspaper reports, because newspaper reports, obviously legacy mainstream media, is so dumbed down. They think we just want headlines and a bit of fluff really in the copy, whereas you actually give us some of the details that we want. And there's a lot of topics that you're covering are so of crucial importance to our viewers, such as knife crimes, right? You've covered that. You've covered grooming.
I'm a big campaigner, anti-knife crime campaigner, which most people don't realise as well.
Talk to us.
First and foremost, the problem we've got, which you've been covering actually this morning, so I don't want to cover a story you've already covered, but the problem is the prisons. We haven't got enough spaces. We all know that. And I go into courts regularly, and you see the rule of law should be that we've just made is that you get caught twice with an illegal bladed article on the street, you go to prison.
Right.
But I see them going in 4, 5, 6 times. There's no places for them. We haven't got, what people don't realize is I don't say this is and I've done an article which I'll send you a link to on this.
Please, I'll put it in the description.
I don't say this is the perfect solution ever. However, we can't just build bricks and mortar, and most people don't realize that a prison to build actually has higher safeguarding than a hospital, because most people aren't there voluntarily, so we have a greater duty of care within them. We can't just build them. That's why we're releasing all these prisoners. It's not satisfactory. I'm not happy about it, but it is what it is. So we have to find an alternative. And what we're not doing is looking at sentencing people with ankle bracelets. And there is precedent to do that, where you say, okay, here's your ankle bracelet on. You're going to stay in your own home for X amount of time during the day. We'll let you out to go for a jog around the block, and then make sure you stay in that block. You're allowed twice a week to go to the shops, or 3 times or whatever, and that's it. Now, that's not a satisfactory solution. I don't say it's the best solution, but it would be cheaper than building bricks and mortar, and it would serve to maybe keep some thugs off the street for a short period and give them a warning. And I've had a lot of people say to me about that article, oh, that's just like locking people up during COVID and you're doing this. And I'm thinking, well,
nothing like
actually,
it.
if I'm going to be locked up, I'd rather be locked up in my own home with my own bath and my own kitchen and my own TV, away from any dangerous exploitation in prison.
Yeah.
And I have a funny feeling, and my favourite person, Sadiq Khan. He was very set against this, the same as he was set against knife wands. There's 3 things that Sadiq Khan threw out. First was targeted policing, and that's not stop and search. That means it's very basic rocket science. There was a research done at Oxford that said, first of all, just take your police officers, look for where the crimes are happening, look what times they're happening, and stick them in that area. Secondly, they said use knife wands or portable and equip them with metal detectors. They're less intrusive than a stop and search, and more effective and quicker. And then thirdly, introduce virtual prison sentencing using those. He threw the whole bloody lot out, and nobody knows about it, and nobody's heard about that.
Extraordinary.
But the reason is, if you think about it, is that if he did that, what is he doing? It's not racist, because you're just following crime figures, so he can't call it racist. Secondly, if you're using knife wands and you've equipped every patrol with one of those knife wands, and you can just go woof, woof, woof and find the knife, he's going to suddenly have huge amounts of ethnic areas with huge amounts of knife crime, nowhere to stick them. And then he's going to would have had the optics before his election of, oh, I'm locking lots of black people and Asian people up in their own homes, which would have gone down like a lead balloon for his actual. And if you look, the Conservative candidate, that was actually on her manifesto. Equip
Susan Hall, yeah.
She said, equip. If you look, it's still there. Equip all Met Police patrols with a knife wand. And why are we not doing those knife wands? I did as all reporters do occasionally, you ring up and do a little white lie. And I rang up and pretended to be, I wanted to buy lots of knife wands. And I got the price down to £120 per knife wand on a bulk order.
I didn't know that about Sadiq Khan. I know that he always gets blamed for the increase in knife crime, and we do have an increase in knife crime. And I often think, I can't bear him, by the way, just to say clean hands here, because I think he's problematic on a number of levels. But I also think that he's clearly problematic here. But I didn't realize that he had rejected all those potential ways that we could actually deal with knife crime. So
£120 per unit. How much that wouldn't cost the earth?
No. That's extraordinary. And especially because we are talking about an epidemic here, aren't we? Do you think it is more so in the capital than anywhere else?
It is. Yeah, I mean, all the capital, because Birmingham had a drop. Now, I've got a reporter in Birmingham, Jay, who's really good. And you see his reports on our website as well. He's just qualified, actually, which is quite nice. But it's Manchester, Birmingham, London. I think you get them in the urban areas, yes. But it seems to be one of the things that most people, again, the machete and knife crime thing, machete zombie knife thing, that's complete BS as well. You can go down to any butcher's shop, and I did and bought one. You can buy a giant butcher's carving knife, which is the same size as a machete, and that's so any knife bands aren't going to work. They're just not going to work. You can go down, buy a giant size, and actually it's better than most machetes you'd buy online and shop because it's a butcher's tool. It might cost you a few quid more, but you can go and buy them anyway. So no knife bands are going to work on this. But most of the actual crimes when I go into courts, they're not machetes, they're not zombie knives. Majority of the bad stabbings are done with kitchen knives and screwdrivers and things like that.
Right.
So they're going to go down a kitchen shop and buy a knife. That's it. And most of the time, the smaller knives are more dangerous. They're sharper and easier to conceal and easier to cut somebody with. So all of that, there's so much guff and nonsense talked about it. And, you had Idris Elba doing that whole campaign, which was based around let's ban zombie knives and machetes again. Well, no, we need to get to the root cause of it and understand why these kids are doing it. And then, there's no other alternative, but we've got to catch them and we've got to make it, if they're carrying a knife, you're going to get done and you're going to have a consequence for your actions. But that's just not happening.
I mean, we need to do something. I mean, I'm always worried that we're not over dramatizing an issue, and I know that they do that for all manner of reasons, often because there's an agenda. And the thing is though, as you say, banning is not the solution, because it's about the person carrying it. It could be any kind of knife or a screwdriver. So we're going to end up banning all manner of things if we go down that route. So something has to change. Definitely, I like the idea of tagging people. Why not? I mean, why not indeed? And I'm somebody who's I was a music journalist. My speciality was hip hop. I understood a great deal about what was happening in terms of street culture. But obviously there are issues that we need to tackle. We also have issues, which you also cover, with the issue of grooming gangs. Now, there's a number of reports that you have, and those are obviously they're live cases. We have to be careful what we say about them. But as an overview, what is your opinion in terms of grooming gangs in this country?
Okay. We're at the moment in the middle of a big sort of survey report in the courts in London, and much as I commend all the good journalists that have done massive work on the grooming gangs. But what we've discovered is there's a whole raft of other grooming crime going on, which is just grooming. And one thing, I'm going to probably get slaughtered for saying this. I hear too often people going, "Oh, don't call it grooming, call it rape." And I'm not a big exponent of that now. Grooming is one offence. Sexual assault is another offence.
Yes.
And we need to separate those, because what we're finding is we've got 137 cases of grooming only we're working through. And again, this is boring bums on seat journalism to get this, because it's in the magistrate's court in front of a judge, because they're all pleading guilty. These are the cases where you have somebody who's contacted children online. They've sent them explicit images, and then they've arranged a meetup, but they've not actually committed a sexual assault. And those are in, because they're not, sensationalist, and it's a magistrate's court, they don't get reported. The ethnicity, the location, who they are, what their immigration status is, never gets reported, and it just disappears, as you know, through the magistrate's court on a judge, because they plead guilty. And they were all going to plead guilty, because if they don't plead guilty, the crime would then have to be elevated to a Crown Court. So they all go through. So I can get, even though innocent until proven guilty, whatever they plead. I've got a funny feeling all these 137 cases. So I've got 137
Wow.
Black Muslim cases going through, which we've seen on court serve that we know
All
they are
Muslim,
and
137.
then 57 white and another. Let's just say there are others, and of course we've not seen the whole amount of them yet. But if you take what we've been sponsored. I mean, I'm not going to lie, we've been sponsored to do this, and I've literally got a grandma called Ada who is my friend from the court. She a little old lady goes through. And she sits there to save her heating bill and eats her sandwiches, but she could do shorthand, and she's going sitting in the cases for me. I am paying her. Let's just qualify.
Let me just double check. When you say we're sponsored, you're not like sponsored by the Jewish lobby or anybody like that, are you? Anybody with a dog in the race?
A concerned group. And well, I've got to pay Ada, and I've got to pay my other guys who go out there. You know what it costs to get to court, to sit there for 4 hours.
I know what it costs. I do understand the importance of transparency, though. Do you publish anywhere who sponsors you?
We will be when it comes to front, yes.
Okay.
On that one, we will be, but at the moment we don't know.
I understand there's difficulties.
You know the old saying, dog bites man, no news. Man bites dog, news. We don't know if it is yet. And I always live by that.
I take your point, and I also understand the problems about being transparent too early as well, because people can get involved and all manner of things can take place and get in the way of justice. I completely get that. Obviously, as a journalist, I have to ask. I'm somebody who has multiple questions, as I'm sure you have yourself. It's just the way it goes, really. But do you think are we reaching a tipping point? Because it seems at the moment we seem to be hearing about is knife crimes and stabbings. And honestly, I have to say that I'm not sure that it is being accurately reflected by legacy media. And I am concerned whether we are overemphasizing a problem compared to other crimes that are going on. Any thoughts on that?
I think you're right. I mean, if you take the population of London and you take a number of people, I mean, we always hear about the deaths. We don't hear about all the basic stabbing. So there is a problem. I'm not going to sit here and say there isn't a problem with knife crime,
right?
But I don't think it's, I think most people, as long as you watch, I mean, it's horrible to say, but we have to watch what we're doing, watch where we're going. My wife's works at the Royal Free Hospital, and she has to be careful going to and from work. If I'm with my daughter, I've got an 8-year-old daughter, I have to be careful on certain instances where I'm going. We shouldn't have to do that, but if you do that, I think you're relatively safe. I don't think very often, if you look at the figures, it's gang crime on gang crime. If you don't go into their areas and you don't insult them and you don't make yourself a target, I think I think some of it is being a bit overreported.
I appreciate that honesty. I really do, because I mean, the thing is obviously our aim as journalists is just to get to the truth, whichever way the wind blows, right? It doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, it's not to have a confirmation bias about anything. And I watch our peers, whom I've worked with, many of them over decades, and just see how they'll take something small and create it into something massive, and suddenly it loses all kind of balance or levity to it. And I never want to be like that. And I can see that you're not either, which is absolutely great.
That's what we wanted to bring back. We wanted to give people just court reports.
Exactly that.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got a degree in law, so I do some, I mean, there are legal analysis, but they're not applied to, I mean, yes, all right. Court procedure, a lot of people don't get and they don't understand. And we wanted to give people back an understanding of that. I mean, it's like with these, these riot cases. A lot of them have pleaded guilty. The scheduling on most of those, if you plead guilty, what they're doing, I mean, I see it in courts all the time. They're not fast tracking them. All they're doing is they're moving a few driving offences around. They're pleading guilty. That's an hour in court. It's just a straight offence. You've pled guilty. Here's the evidence, mitigation, sentencing. I do agree the sentences are too heavy, and it looks like, 2-tier policing and judicial system. Agreed. But the fast tracking is not a case. I see fast track cases all the time, and they'll move a couple of traffic offences around. That gives a judge an hour, and that's all it takes to do it. So And why they're being held on bail, on remand, is because they know there's a judicial sentence coming, and that's common practice. So, it's much as I don't agree with what's going on, systemically, it's just normal. I think Keir Starmer's, saying they're fast tracking and doing all that. I think that's BS. I think all he's done is just move the few court schedules around.
Really interesting.
I think he's milked that till the cows come home on that.
Well, we're not big fans of Starmer around here. I could tell you that.
You're not here either. I'm not. I mean, if you probably won't have seen it. I've just done my. I don't very often do editorials, but I've just done my editorial on where we are on the political system. I don't very often. Which is I'm talking on tonight in another big political space. So strangely, people want to hear my comments on it. I don't know why. I normally, but I do tend to take the law, take what's actually going on, take what's actually feasible, and apply it to my political sort of pieces when I do those, which I think not a lot of people do still.
I take your point. Absolutely. We will put a link to your work in the description. I'm very grateful for you joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sonia.
Absolutely brilliant. You're very welcome back to keep us up to speed with what you're doing, Ben.
Whenever
Thank you so much.
Whenever you need me.
Thank you, Nick, for introducing us to Ben. That's absolutely brilliant. Very, very grateful indeed. Everybody.
Can I put a plug in for my Twitter feed?
Absolutely. We'll also put the your name as well. Plug it.
On YouTube and on Twitter, we are at VPNLDN, on YouTube and on Twitter. If you just want the crime news, folks, we'll give it to you. We're unashamedly tabloid, but we'll give you the straight facts.
Love it. Everybody, this is Ben Freeman. Have a great day, Ben. Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful. Bye. Wonderful. Do you know what? We're missing some good old-fashioned court reporting in news, and that is a reality. And I absolutely take your point. Let me read that. What Synchronized Soul said. It's the people, not the tools. Educate better, more support for mental health units and UK homeless, please. Indeed. Absolutely indeed. Right. Let me read some of these comments before I bring in our Shin. Yes, Captain Flint said grooming is a reality, but it's being used as a lever by these sickos. And beyond belief, can't help but feel that your tongue is firmly planted in your cheek here, saying, have you noticed how much better voting has made things? And Kat, I take Kat's point, all done to keep you in fear, which is why it's really important to me to find out what the context, like how serious is this issue? Now, obviously, if you're a victim of knife crime, it is serious. Or if you have been touched by it in some way, it is serious. But it's also really important for us to keep a context to it and to keep it in proportion, because I do believe that many things are used to create fear. And honestly, I don't ever want to be a fearmonger. Who's raging? Did you find it? I didn't. Gee, sorry, peeps. Why is Crazy Bunny raging? I have a parrot. I am not afraid to use him. I always tell people who try to pick a fight with me, says Randy. Randy, are you being funny? I'm going to bring in Shin. Everybody, you can get to meet Shin, one of our mods. And any moment now. Any moment now. Lovely Shin. Hello, Shin. Asked to start video. Asked to unmute. Yes. Any second.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you and can't see you.
You can't see me. You can hear me. Okay. Okay. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you. Everybody, here's Shin, one of our mods. Hello, Shin.
Hey, I thought let's have some real sound for once.
Absolutely. Come a bit closer to the microphone.
Can you hear me when I talk through here?
Oh, yes, it's a bit echoey, but have you got a microphone in the computer?
Yeah, I've got a normal mic there.
Right. Now we can hear you much better now. We can hear you much better now.
Let me move this mic because I've gone from mod to rockstar.
Yeah.
So that's not
Wonderful to have you with us.
Wait.
Our lovely viewers are probably completely unaware that one of our mods, she obviously met Zoe last week, who's part of Synchronized Soul podcast Only Cans. And now they're going to meet the other mod, which is Shin. I've known Shin now for probably about 4 years. And about 4 years, mate, since about 2020.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I've been following you longer than that.
really?
I just made myself known to you 4 years ago.
Ah, okay. Well, got you. Whoop whoop. Shinri in the house. Love you, says Teresa. Yay, Shin. Looking forward, says Chris. Hello, Shin, says Wade. Yes, I cannot believe it. The real life Shin. Hello, says Rowie. Rowie, our resident troublemaker. Where would we be without Rowie?
Hey, Rowie. Hey, everyone in the chat. Sorry, it went so quick this morning. Often, Crazy and I, we just say hi to everybody by name, but it goes so quick.
I know. Chris67 says, not sure why, but I thought Shin was a £400 trucker from Canada. And no, absolutely not.
Totally
but
not.
Cavan says, wow, beautiful lady. She is beautiful, isn't she? But she's, thank you, Steve. I appreciate that about Richard Gill. Really appreciate that. Show some love, peeps, says Synchronized Soul.
Yeah, I'm not singing if people don't start liking. What's that? Not enough likes.
She's so funny, Shin. I see you sometimes in modding there saying, "Did you like on the way in?" Like they've just entered a house. I suppose they have in many respects
like
as well.
A building, isn't it?
So Shin,
Yes.
did you fall out of the uterus as a musician?
Apparently, when I fell out of the uterus. Well, actually, I was born in Holland. I'm half Dutch, and to be honest, in Holland we're born on a little bike with a book of international law under our arm. That's how we come out of our mom. But apparently I was singing all the time, yeah. When I meet people that knew me in primary school and what do you do? Well, I write songs. Oh, you always used to sing. But I don't really remember that, to be honest. My mom was autistic, so I had a kind of weird upbringing.
Well, it's not done you any harm whatsoever. And so Shin, what are you going to play for us?
I think I'm going to play a song I wrote that Jonathan Charlotte never heard. I wrote it when I left him. It's called Have No Fear. And why? Because my mom was the same age as everyone's grandparents. My parents had my brother and I late. And so my mom was 13 when the Second World War finished. My mom was raised in fear, and she raised us in fear. And to be honest, 2024, nothing that my mom and that generation was raised with came true. So I said the same to the kids that we're looking after. Look, they're putting fear everywhere. Please have no fear, because it's to make you react instead of act. So
Yes.
The song I'm going to play you guys is Have No Fear.
We love that. We love that. Right,
And,
Shin, tell me when you're ready to take it away and I'll give you the whole screen.
I can, I'm going to use this mic, I think.
Yeah, she's a musician, peeps. She's a musician. Yes, she is. Have no fear. Right on, says it's life, Jim. Right, let me see if I can give this over to, well, actually, let me,
Does it matter if I hear myself?
yes, Kat completely agrees with that. I know you do, Kat. I take your point, Kat. I saw your comments. I do take your point. And you see, I represented what you were saying, didn't I? Robin says an on standby by a sound engineer. Who is? You are or
I
Shin
am the
is?
sound engineer as well.
How old is Shin, says Cavan? I don't know, about 105. It's just the water is great over there.
You did say there was a bit too much reverb. 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah, this world does work on fear. Yeah, it does. Very good advice. What's that? Have no fear. Have no sphere. Sphere, this is nice. On a plane. Have no sphere is on right now on YouTube. Flat Earth Show. Never heard of it, right? I know all the songs, says Robin.
I'm ready.
You're ready? Right, everybody. This is Shinri. Take it away, girl.
From a distance, I watch you smile. I've been watching you smile for some time. Your shadow shines. Blue light. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. From a distance. I watch the birds high up in the sky. For birds are we cries. Birds are like flowers. I just said. Birds are like flowers. Flowers that fly. See, I'm a flower that cannot fly, solitaire, solitaire. For the butterfly now have no fear. Love is here. Have no fear. Truth is near. Have no fear. Love is here. Have no fear. Truth is near. Have no fear. Love is here. Have no fear. Truth is near. You can't have no fear. No fear. What goes still is truth is here. You can't have no fear. What dust is near. You can't have. Why do we make so much noise when there's so much more music in silence?
Girl,
my goodness, my
girl, we love it. I'm going to read you some of the comments. That was absolutely beautiful. And I think have no fear has to be our mantra for the week and beyond. It's absolutely vital. Love that. I've actually got goosebumps and I'm going to read you some of the comments. Cloudy says, first time seeing a live act on a live stream and with nice fingers and everything. And I got there's so many great comments for you, Shin. You've got to hear them.
Up.
Patricia says, fantastic voice, incredible song, love it. All that fluff and stuff, bloody beautiful. Soulful Shin says, Carol, beautiful and talented, beautiful gift that the Lord gave you. Thank you for sharing your heart for others. Greg says, beautiful voice. Emma says, activist anthem. Need to get this song out there, Sonia. I love that, Emma. Make love your goal. I felt those vibes as well. Somebody said Skunk and Nancy vibes. I've also said to you before, reminded me very much of Four Non-Blonde vibes as well. Similar stuff like What's Up, which I absolutely love that song. Let me just correct my camera again. Shin, that is absolutely beautiful. And Shin, what Shin has done is she's just basically launched us into, I love music and I love live music and I love people who care about what they do, and Shin is uber passionate, not just about telling the truth but about her music. And I just thought after we saw Zoe, everybody has to see Shin. Everybody has to experience a little bit of our Shin as well. Shin, we love you so much. I'm very grateful for all your incredible support. That was absolutely beautiful.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
Lang zal Ria leven, lang zal Sandor leven, lang zullen ze leven in de gloria, in de gloria, voor mijn tante Ria. En heeft Sandor, that was Dutch, sorry, it's my auntie's birthday and my cousin, and they're Dutch, and I don't have my mum anymore. All that I have left in Holland is my auntie. So I just had to
Oh,
say that.
well, happy birthday to them. Shin, who did that painting in the background?
Oh yeah, I was looking at myself. De Moravie, Célie de Moravie. Yeah, that's me.
Fabulous. We love that too. We
She
love
did
that
as
too.
well. She makes sculptures with floated wood. This is floated wood. That driftwood. This is driftwood.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And yes, people, she isn't just beautiful on the inside, as you can now see. Yes, absolutely. Yes, Mark, we've got a little bit more to go yet, but I wanted Shin to come in today, and she has. It's absolutely lovely to see you, my darling.
Could I just say one more thing?
Of course.
Anybody watching, I am bookable. I miss playing live. I've been cancelled for the past 25 years, to be honest. And if anybody wants to gig, you can just get me to come over and have some musicians there, and we can have fun. I just wanted to say that because people seem to think I don't want to play. Yes, I do want to play.
And we're going to put some links where people could contact you in the description.
My soul, that's all.
Yeah, she mentioned Jonathan Charlotte, who obviously used to manage Charlotte Church,
Yes.
and he managed you for a period of time, right?
Yeah.
But
He did.
Shin is a free spirit. She's not going to be
It's funny
molded.
because it was funny when you said about the Spice Girls that basically the names of the Spice Girls wouldn't have existed without you. Well, when I met Jonathan, I met him busking actually. I truly met him busking. I was actually really annoyed the first time I met him. I was in Tottenham Court Road. I used to be in Holborn, but for a reason we got chased that day from Holborn, so I was in Tottenham Court Road. And I would stand where you come down, where you come down into the station, so you have the two platforms. And I saw him coming, and I'm playing my song, and he stood still, and I'm like, cool, he's gonna give me money. And I finished my song, he stood there. I'm like, shit, I'm gonna have to play another song, because often I just play the same song over and over again. The tube comes, you play the same song again. It's like, I've got to play another song. He stood there still, I got to play another song. I played 3 songs, and he gives me a card. He goes, yeah, we manage acts. And I'm looking at him like, I want money, mate. Anyway, later on, I did call him, and he told me to come down. And then there was that woman from the Spice Girls. And so I'm playing this beautiful music with the Indian Bengali girl singing ragas on my music. And so the woman goes, "Do you want to be famous?" And I look at her. I'm like, well, I'm not stupid. I know in my line of business, if you're successful, fame comes with it.
Yeah.
But no, I don't want to be famous. I want to be successful. She looked at Jonathan. She goes, "Good luck with that one. She's going to be hard." And she walked out.
Oh, right.
But after that, what I got presented, there's not one person known today that didn't know they signed their soul to the devil. I'm sick and tired of it. Because I could have been big with Jonathan.
Yeah. People make choices. They absolutely make choices. I'm going to read you some more comments before you leave us. Kevin wants to know if you can come over to his house. Chris would love to see you live. I saw somebody else say, "Is she married?" Shin's smile is literally full of light, says B. And Lyra says, "Now we know who is telling us to hit the like button on the way into the building."
Yes.
Snip says, "I always thought Shin was a bloke, and so this is a lovely and pleasant surprise." Yeah, somebody
hit the like button on your way out, yeah?
Yeah, that's it. You've been told, people. Everybody give it up
Sonia.
for the wonderful and magnificent Shin. Take good care of yourself, darling.
Reactivate yourself with the full moon tonight. It's
hallelujah.
A seasonal full moon. It means it's the 3rd full moon of 4 in one season, and you don't often have 4 full moons in one season. So
exactly.
Go and and don't do too many things at the same time, because it's very powerful. Just concentrate on what you should be doing, and it should be going fine.
Yeah.
Sonia, I'm going back to mudding. Love you. Thank you very much.
Oh, always welcome, darling. Thank you. Thank you so much. Everybody, it is Soul Sound Shinri. Big love, big love. She's back to modding.
Little dedication to my Kenzo manga. Love you, kid.
Take good care of yourself. Isn't she wonderful? We love her. We love it. Yes, she's uber talented. I'm a star spotter. I am. I recognize talent. Reactivated already, mate. Well, Shin, you'll be able to see the lovely comments. You'll be able to see all the lovely comments. Isn't that lovely? I love being around live music. I do. I'm a music girl. I can't play it, but I can recognise it. So before Shin, we were just discussing knife crime with Ben Freeman, obviously, and as we say, it is clearly a problem to some and not so much to others. And so I asked on social media, what should we do about it? Let me read you some of the answers. Worthy says, highlight hotspots for knife crime. I'm sure there aren't lots of them. Deploy specialist task force to deal with drug and knife crime. Purple Lass says, if every child was simply taught, don't do anything to others that you would not like done to you, and encouraged to live strictly by that tenet, society would be cleaner, brighter, kinder, safer, and in truth. I agree, Purple Lass. A lot of the problems are obviously associated with poor role models, poor parenting, but also with poverty, with homelessness, mental health issues as well. And Winfred wants to know, custodial sentence for carrying, isn't that still a policy? Apparently not. I don't doubt the number of injured or killed, but many of these incidents, especially taken up by MSM, are practically unbelievable. PSYOPs, question mark. I think that's a good point. It's a good point. Rob says, carry a knife, get 5 years to life. Simple slogan, simple message, build more prisons and lock them up. Notions thinks the solution is to arm law-abiding citizens, but won't we all then be like fighting on the streets? And Red Atlantis says, legalize guns again and arm up the decent law-abiding people of Britain. I don't know what's going on here. Ness said, anyone found carrying knives to be jailed instantly. The problem is, Ness, no jail spaces, no bail either. I don't want to go out worried about who might be carrying a knife. It's scary. So automatically jail them as soon as they're arrested, detained. Friends of the ADF party said 10 years minimum sentence, no parole, stop and search, parents of those juveniles convicted to attend parenting courses. Whoa, extending it to the family, eh? And Graham Kemp said this didn't happen overnight and there is no quick fix. It's symptomatic of a fragmented society and the degradation of values that are seen as weaknesses to exploit. Stable home life, mutual respect, and social and economic mobility are essentials. It's a very long road back. Indeed, it is. Let me just say, Crone says it should be instant prison term, but we hear that there are not enough prison cells, so prisoners are being let out early, i.e. those on long-term sentences. Let's finish with Nick. Nick, who actually brought Ben our way today. So hello, Nick. I hope you're well. Longer sentences, as always, suggested, definitely. Yes, that will keep them locked up for longer and the street safer, but I assure it will be no deterrent. So the rates won't drop, in my opinion. USA has the death penalty to deter murderers didn't make a blind bit of difference. It is difficult, isn't it? It is difficult to know quite how much we are being told is true and hyped. Right, let me move on. Seems Elon Musk, arguably the world's richest man, or one of, is obsessed with the UK and the year 2030, because you know what? There's that year again. In a series of tweets where he's sort of signposting the demise of freedom of expression in the UK, he tweeted, it's 2030 in the UK and you're being executed for posting a meme. I sincerely hope not. I sincerely hope not, Elon. I sincerely hope not. Now, let me look at any news that I haven't yet covered, because I think there was some earlier. Vaccine compensation claims surge in the UK. Around 14,000 individuals have now filed for compensation under the government's vaccine damage payment scheme, claiming adverse health effects from the COVID-19 vaccines. The scheme has so far awarded payments to 175 claimants. And in fact, I believe Alex Mitchell was the very first awardee. Alex, very sadly, ended up having his leg amputated, and he's still a formidable character. Much love to him. And I noticed that I think it was the Daily Telegraph, pretty sure it was the Telegraph. Yeah, they ran this story, and the first headline was almost 14,000 seek compensation, saying COVID vaccines left them disabled. And they later amended it to take out the figure. So it was thousands seek compensation after COVID vaccines left them disabled. This shows you the political nature. Somebody put in a call saying, take that number out of the headline. That is problematic for us. And the Telegraph and all of legacy media are completely compromised. They receive money from the government, our money, taxpayers' money, to advertise C19. So these newspapers are not doing us any favors. They are only telling us this news because they can no longer hide it. But they were part of it. They were part and parcel of it. So, of course, they're compromised. And, of course, they will be prepared to make adjustments and amendments like that, which is disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. I saw that 5 people have been charged in the death of Matthew Perry. Matthew Perry, it would have been his birthday today. Obviously, most famous for being Chandler Bing in Friends. And he died in October last year after being given a fatal dose of ketamine. And the people who have been charged, 5 arrested. And so that is, let me see, it's his long-term assistant who actually administered it, Kenneth Iwamasa. He administered that fatal dosage, and he claims in court documents that Matthew Perry's last words were, shoot me up with a big one. And that was shortly before he was found face down in the hot tub of his LA mansion. And it should be noted that Matthew Perry was found twice, found unconscious twice before his death. Obviously, as I say, he had shots on the day of his death. The people arrested, all implicated in his death, obviously, they include Dr. Mark Chavez, Jasveen Sangha, Dr. Salvador Plasencia, Iwamasa, the assistant, Eric Fleming. Iwamasa, Fleming and Chavez have all agreed to plead guilty, while Sangha and Plasencia have pleaded not guilty. It's terribly sad. It's almost like some lives are almost predetermined because of the history. He grew up in a druggy home. He was taking drugs from a very young age. He was absolutely set on that pathway. And what was really sad, of course, was that he was apparently clean and an advocate for having, he'd long struggled with his addictions, alcoholism and various illegal drugs. And he was an advocate for sort of being clean. But anybody who looked at him could see that this was not a man who was clean. In fact, when they had that Friends reunion, he was the last one to arrive. And you could see he was shambolic, bless him. And I just found it really sad. And sometimes the problem is fame is an absolute monster for people who already... People who have problems gravitate towards fame, oftentimes because they seek a validation that they didn't get in their childhood. And he was one of them. But it's a double-edged sword, because it also afforded him all the luxury and all the money to be able to feed his habit, which was continuous. So I think that's really sad. Obviously, it reminds me very much of what happened with Michael Jackson. These enablers, they're murderers, aren't they? These people who enable it. If you're shooting somebody up with ketamine, then if anything happens to that person, you have to be held accountable. And apparently what was happening was his assistant was going out finding sources of how he could get this ketamine, going to various doctors. Apparently Iwamasa had met one of them, Plasencia, Dr. Plasencia, at least 7 times between September 30th and October 28th. That's 7 times to get ketamine in less than a month. Quite shocking, right? The assistant was said to have handed over $55,000 to purchase liquid ketamine and ketamine lozenges. And the authorities have accused the suspects of ruthlessly exploiting Matthew's struggles with drug addiction. I have to agree. The prosecutor said the defendants in this case knew what they were doing was wrong. They knew that what they were doing were risking great danger to Mr. Perry, but they did it anyways. In the end, these defendants were more interested in profiting off Mr. Perry than caring for his well-being. And it's quite sad. As I say, it would have been his birthday today. And I just think it is sad. I think it is sad. Right, Elaine, I want to address your email. She says, "Dear lovely Sonia, thank you. You're lovely too. I've heard mention a few times on your morning show of the Fabian Society. As I know nothing on this subject, I was hoping you could point me in the right direction. Is there anything in your archive on YouTube I could start with?" Well, I thought I'd do a little primer and see where it takes us, really. And so the Fabian Society, British socialist organisation, we were told that the purpose was to advance the principles of social democracy and democratic socialism via what they considered to be gradualist and reformist efforts in democracy. In other words, they change things from within. They get inside organizations rather than protesting outside. You could say they were the original political infiltrators. It was historically related to radicalism and a left-wing liberal tradition. And I would say now, I absolutely hear what Simon Elmer's saying, and that is what they have are groups within groups. Absolutely. But we should not underestimate for 1 second the impact of the Fabian Society on British politics over the last 100+ years. And they actually founded the influential London School of Economics. That was founded in 1895. These days, it's largely Fabian Society is largely regarded as a think tank. It was one of the founding organisations of the Labour Representation Committee in 1900, an important, huge influence upon the Labour Society, and some of the things that we're seeing going on now. Absolutely, Fabian Society goes hand in hand with WEF and all the other organisations that Keir Starmer is associated with, including the Trilateral Commission. But it is, as I say, primarily seen these days as a think tank. And what was interesting was that the logo of the Fabian Society was a tortoise, and it represented the group's sort of notion of a slow and imperceptible transition to socialism and the power that they sought. The coat of arms was a wolf in sheep's clothing, which we've talked about before. And that represented the methodology, right, for achieving its goal. Well, you know what that is, exactly what Simon was outlining Sir Keir Starmer is about, you know, that, what is it? The fist in a velvet glove approach. That's exactly it. But they changed the wolf in sheep's clothing because, well, why? Obviously, due to its obvious, very negative connotations. Founding members, when it first started, it attracted many prominent public figures of like British society, including George Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells, and suffragette Emmeline Pankhurst. Bertrand Russell actually briefly became a member and resigned because he believed that the Fabian Society was aligning itself with problematic other governments. In this case, it was with Germany, and was deeply concerned that their alignment with certain places and certain ideologies would lead to war. Obviously, Keir Starmer's government, as we said, is Fabian heavy, and many MPs have addressed Fabian conferences and written manifestos. And I was talking earlier about how I'd gone through Yvette Cooper's 2019 speech at the Fabian Summer Conference. It was described as a Fabian way forward. And honestly, pretty much everything now that she, as the Home Secretary, is attempting to put into law was already discussed then. She said at today's conference, you'll hear from John Ashworth. Well, during lockdown, he was major big pharma pusher, John Ashworth. And also you'll be hearing from Angela Rayner. She's Deputy Prime Minister. And what Yvette Cooper said in this speech was the next Prime Minister will be Jeremy Hunt or Boris Johnson. Neither of them has any kind of proper plan. The risk of a chaotic no deal are increasing. This was obviously when Brexit was all happening. And then she did a big breakdown. After 9 years of Tory austerity, shortages of GPs and midwives, up to 1,000 Sure Starts closed, housing budgets slashed, parents going hungry to feed their kids. And she's got a liberty because the first thing that her government under Keir Starmer did, obviously, was attack pensioners. Sorry, I need to find a comfortable seat. Was attack pensioners. Absolutely, austerity. They're bringing austerity back. And I hate these people, and I hate them because they're such horrible, reprehensible liars. And what she said in this speech was, our country badly needs serious direction, but we are getting a joke. Our country is deeply and genuinely divided. Oh, she knew it, and they were about to use it to full effect. Our union has become fragile, our future uncertain. 2 years ago, I made a speech at this Fabian Summer Conference just after the 2017 election. I talked about the inspiring potential of the new, restless, dynamic politics to challenge complacency and demand change. It's what we need. And then she went on to say, but 2 years on, judges are called traitors, MPs are called saboteurs, the BBC called the enemy, trust in politics and Parliament collapsed. Yes, for a damn good reason. And the BBC is the enemy. Yeah, it is. I don't care what anybody says. It's certainly the enemy of truth, along with the rest of legacy media. And then she goes on to talk about, I warned you about the darkness of politics. She cites people like Donald Trump, Nigel Farage, she also talks about how, and this is where the new hate crimes that she wants to introduce. She says the Tory party, the party of government, failed to tackle Islamophobia. She said the Labour Party was being investigated for disastrously failing to tackle anti-Semitism. So right there, straight away, we have two groups in society who are being set apart, right? Set apart for protection and to create division, right? And that is Jews and Muslims. And then she talks about rising vitriol in public debate. And she goes into how there are fake accounts set up to incite violence and stir anger, right? This was 2019. She was talking about this. Okay, bear in mind what has just happened on her watch. In my case, she says, my staff at one point had to report 35 violent threats or malicious communications to the police in a week. This was all in place. This was all about putting the agenda in place. She talked about racist threats, abuse, misogyny, homophobia, and on and on. And she's ended really pretty much by saying, actually not ended, but she went on to say, we can't carry on like this. We are going to pull ourselves and our country apart. No, Mrs. That's what you're doing. As Fabian, she said, we are optimists. So here's 4 suggestions for actions we should take. And she goes on to talk about how we need to introduce kindness and respect to our public debates. Yeah, but what if they're killing us, right? What if they're introducing people who are going to harm us? Should we then all be smiley face and happy clappy? I think not. She says, I don't believe most of our country want abusive politics. No, most of our country don't want politicians like you. Because as Simon Elmer outlined, only 20% voted for you lot, right? She says, so she's talking about how we need to introduce politeness back into society. Now, I have no problem with that. I believe in good manners. I do. I think it can make things a hell of a lot easier. But I also understand the importance of outrage. When there's something to be outraged about, we should be outraged. We shouldn't be smiley, smiley, happy, clappy. She goes on to talk about, remember what happened to Joe Cox? Joe Cox, of course, was the Labour MP who was killed following the Brexit vote. And there's always lots of questions all around that and about her husband and her family. There's lots of questions. Let's put it that way. There is lots and lots of questions around the whole murder of Joe Cox. And I think her final fling, really, in terms of this 2019 speech was at the social media companies. They wanted them desperately. She said, remember that social media companies could do more and we should make them. Facebook could tackle the closed groups of thousands of people where incitement to violence and hatred take place. Google could sort out their algorithms so they don't radicalize promoting ever more extreme material. And her second point was we have to face up to the problems in our party, says the woman who is now Home Secretary and a leading member of Labour, led by Keir Starmer, as if they're going to face up to anything. Yvette Cooper couldn't even face up to the fact that when I asked her where her husband had been one weekend because he'd been at a Bilderberg meeting, she said, I don't know. You couldn't even face up to where your husband had been, Yvette. Don't tell me you have to face up. You're going to face up to the problems with your own party. And she goes on and she talks about how we should think about moving government and parliament to other areas of the UK. I don't really have a problem with that necessarily. And she says, and this is obviously something they've traded on. She said, the country is polarized. The centre isn't holding. And the thing that strikes me, she says, I think back to 1943, the picture of the Fabian Summer School, the speeches from the Haycart, the audience lying on the grass, men in khaki or in shorts, women in summer dresses and cardigans. Yeah, well done. All good, right? But so let us not forget that Yvette Cooper is Keir Starmer's shadow Home Secretary, rather. She's married to Ed Balls, who from last week, Good Morning Britain, Ed Balls presents on Good Morning Britain. He's a former member of Parliament. And last week, there were close to 10,000 complaints made to Ofcom because Ed Balls, in his role as presenter on Good Morning Britain, was interviewing his wife, Yvette Cooper. And they expect us to believe that that is, that we can trust that. Anyway, it's also interesting to note, by the way, I have deep concerns about her going on about this new misogyny bill because the Labour Party don't know what a woman is. They actually don't know what a woman is. So they're expecting to be able to do something about this, about misogyny. And also, furthermore, arguably, their son is involved very much in misogynistic practice because their son, Joel Cooper, is a trans activist. Yeah, he is. He's been known to show up various places with his mob to heckle, including once for Nadeem Zawi, who I have no time for, obviously, the man who used our money to heat his stables, former MP. But nonetheless, so the point being, Elaine, is that the Fabian Society are, if you watch them, they're sort of future predictors of what's going on. They get inside organizations and they influence them. But I would say that their influence is less powerful than WEF these days, but they're still powerful. They are still influencing decisions that are taking place, including clearly what's going on in our judiciary, what's going on in terms of social media, what's going on within the police, what's going on in politics. So they are extremely influential. And let us bear in mind, they are not politically elected. The Fabian Society itself is not a politically elected society, right? The individuals within it may be, but the overarching message of the Fabian Society is what is being transmitted via these individuals. So I want to talk more in the future about the Fabian Society, bring on people who studied it, but I would say that it is, it has a interesting and curious and not fully known influence on the politics of the UK. And I think it's important that we know about that. Great. How are you in the chat there? We're coming close to the end today, gorgeous people. Yes, we are. We're coming close to the end. Let's get to... Is Russell Brand a Fabian Society member, Rock Lover? I think I've read that before. Champagne Socialist says Mayday. Oh my God, so much. Well, Choose Love, there you go. And that Choose Love had never heard of the Fabian Society, but that's the whole point. They don't want people to hear about these societies and organizations, right? Crazy Bunny is having problems with her spelling today. At Angie Power Disney lifted the vibes. What happened? Talk to me. I'm missing stuff here. Oh, you're welcome, Craig. And Callum is talking about Russell Brand, saying, love that guy. He's as phony as they come. Oh, it's free to subscribe. George Benson is talking about the Occidental Observer. Never heard of them. But is saying is fine collection of patriots. Who regularly send out essays from their group and is free to subscribe. Who's an Oliver Twist character? Oh, Fate. I see. And can I say that our views are on 2,458, according to my panel here. Please hit the likes. Please hit the likes. Anything else I want to say to you? What was all that business they were going on about? I haven't caught up on that. About on the night of August the 17th, the numerous residents in Palmdale and Lancaster, California, reported sightings of unidentified flying objects. Is this the moment? Because isn't that on our bingo card? It's got to be on our bingo card, isn't it? When they finally let us know that there are UFOs, isn't it? That was taking place. And can I just say, please don't waste your time sending me what other people think about me. It's none of my business. It's literally none of my business what other people think about me. Of course, I realize that weirdos and people who want to hang off my coattails of my good reputation will talk about me to get attention. They use my name for clout because when they talk about themselves, no one listens, but let them chat. Let them chat. I've been a public figure, rather, for several decades. I'm quite used to the grotesque accusations and allegations about me, but I'm truly past it. I'm truly past it. What I do is bigger than their gossip. So please don't send me their stuff. I don't need to see it unless it's actually threatening my life. It's my experience that the people who gossip about me the most, who tell the most lies, are people who once tried to get me on side and they're angry with me because I rejected them. They tried to get me to take an interest in their bat crazy theories, attention-seeking theories, and I refused. And it was the rejection that triggered their rage, possibly a narc rage. Tough. Let them boil in their own toxic anger. I love dimming the lights of these people. You know I do. I just can't help it. And to the people who send me this nonsense, thank you, but no thank you. And here's a thought. Instead of actually sending it to me, how about you calling it out yourself? There's a novel thought. There's a novel thought. And can I just say, actually, thank you to both Chris Thrall and Sean Atwood. You might not have expected me to say that, but both Chris Thrall and Sean Atwood, obviously YouTubers, they refused to allow a deranged ex-cop to continue his attacks on me. This deranged ex-cop has a vendetta against me because I refused to interview him about his bat crazy theories, and an absolute narcissist attention seeker. I'm not even going to give him his name anymore. Well, he's got his name, but I'm not even going to publicize his name anymore, except to say he ran around making videos claiming that I was part of a child trafficking ring to do with adrenochrome. How insane and sick is that? But this deranged ex-cop was on with Chris Thrall and with Sean Atwood, not necessarily for reasons that I agree or approve of, but he tried to start on me and both of them stopped him. So thank you both. I appreciate that. Thank you. And I don't necessarily appreciate what's happening in terms of people platforming the fake Madeline, though, because that's what one of these was about. Stop platforming the fake Madeline. And I loved seeing profiler Pat Brown, who appears in my Madeleine McCann documentaries, tearing into the nonsense, telling people to ignore the clowns. Indeed, these people jumping on this fake Madeline, this Julia Wandel, which, as you know, Only Cans, they did a breakdown about it on their show on Saturday. And you can find that link on Friday, and I'll put it again in the description. Do you know what? I used to feel incredibly sorry for Julia because it seemed absolutely clear to me that she's somebody with very deep and serious psychological problems. And I just thought all these people are taking advantage of her. But I don't feel sorry for her anymore. I think she is shamelessly distracting from the truth of what happened to Madeleine McCann. And anyone who continues to promote her is part of the problem of why us taxpayers are still paying, millions of pounds to an investigation that should have been closed long ago. Should never even been started, frankly. Also, I'm going to move on. People often say to me, talk about your music industry days. I found this picture. Anybody know any of the people on this? So that is obviously me here. There's me. This is on tour with Wu-Tang Clan. This was for Def Jam's, I think, 20th anniversary. This is a picture that appeared all over the music press, various other places. So I found it and I thought, let me just tell you the story behind it. So basically what had happened, that light is shining on that. So basically what had happened, I'm going to bring that down a little bit so the light doesn't shine. Actually, you've had a good look at it, haven't you? Right. So basically what had happened was I was on tour with Def Jam and for their anniversary, and we'd come to Philadelphia, and this is where this happened. And basically there was like local crews from New York. They'd come over to Philadelphia and they got stormed backstage where I was there with so many people: Keith Murray, EPMD, Wu-Tang Clan, Onyx, like everybody fine backstage. And they maced Raekwon, the chef from Wu-Tang Clan. And you can actually see in this picture, I think, you can see he's actually got a turban. He's got a towel on his head. So let me just tell you what's going on in this picture. This security guy here. This is me with my head in my hands. And the reason I've got my head in my hands is because Raekwon has just been maced. And in his absolute panic where he's trying to get the mace out of his eyes, I stand up to try and help. He can't see anything. I stand up to try and help him. And he thinks I'm his attacker. And he goes to attack me and he's screaming, get away from me, get away from me, get away. And I'm trying to get the mace out of his eyes. Nobody else was, just me, just little old me. And so finally managed to get this towel around his head after he'd been maced. Method Man is on the floor with his bottle of Bolly and high as a kite, but on the floor having a great time. And me, I've literally got my head in my hands thinking, please take me back to London. I don't want to be with these people anymore. It's all mad here. And that happened. It was mad times, and but quite fond memories when I look back on it, really. Yeah, quite fond memories. Competition time. Competition time. First two people to write into Sonia Poulton at sky.com. Get this. Get these. So basically, right, I've had these t-shirts 10 years in this bag. I just found them, right? You might not want them after that. But this is, let me just go to Propaganda Corner, right? Propaganda Corner today goes to my old workplace, The People's Voice. It was founded in November 2013 by David Icke. I was the lead anchor alongside such people as Ken O'Keefe, who also had a show. TPV is still going as an online publication. It's run by David Icke's former sidekick, Sean ADL Tabatabai. Do not share that. Do not. That is full on awful lies, rubbish, nonsense. It's pure dis and misinformation from Sean ADL. Awful man, awful man. He's the ultimate clickbait merchant. You cannot trust a word he puts out. He puts out stuff literally for clickbait. Horrible man. I'm still asking the question of what happened to the money, Sean. Nobody's given me that answer. But anyway, to cut a very long story short, when I left TPV, the person who was creating these t-shirts sent me these for a competition that never happened. Do you recognize these t-shirts? Aren't they fabulous? I love them. There's that one. Still, honestly, it's still in absolute immaculate condition. They've literally been wrapped up for 10 years. And here's the other one. And so I will send them to the first two people. If you recognize them, please contact me. I've finally done your competition because you sent me them in the changeover period when I was leaving and I had nowhere. Look, these are fabulous, aren't they? Aren't they fabulous? I love them. They're large. Actually, it might be larger than large. Extra, extra large. So great for sleeping in. And as I say, the first two people to write to me at Sonia Poulton at sky.com get these t-shirts. There you go. And if you design these t-shirts, get in touch with me and come on and talk to me. I want to just say there's a word that has emerged over the last 4 years I absolutely hate. And it's mostly used by people who, up until C19, seem to be part of the problem. And that is they supported official narratives. The word is, in my opinion, it's childish, it's embarrassing, it's demeaning, it makes truth tellers look like idiots, and it should be beneath us. What is that word? That word is normies. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. It's uttered by people who actually think themselves to be normies when they are not realizing what an absolute lie and nonsense we are consistently being fed. A lot of the people who are using that word normies now, they consider themselves superior to people who haven't yet woken up. But 4 years ago, you weren't awake. I hate that word. Don't use it near me. There you go. And can I just say, seeing as I'm talking about old workplaces, I think it would be slightly remiss of me not to notice that my most previous workplace, today's News Talk, TNT, is sinking faster than the Titanic. Looks like I got out just in time, pausing staff, laying people off. This is what happens when you claim to be a free speech station to the world, but are anything but behind closed doors. TNT has morphed into a very bad version of Talk TV and GB News. It had so much potential, but sadly, it's going to go the way of the rest of them. I doubt it'll even survive to the end of this year. Fact. And I don't mean that in any kind of schadenfreude way. I don't. But I think it was inevitable because the potential was there. And then they brought in people who were part of mainstream. And honestly, the same thing happened with GB News. It was formed by mainstream people. You're not going to get a different news station. But TNT was primarily hosted and run by people who weren't part of the mainstream. I was part of the mainstream, but obviously an outside thinker. But when you start to bring in producers and presenters who are very, very, very mainstream, then you've got a problem. And because it's nothing new about it, is it? Nothing new about it at all. Have any of you written in yet for these t-shirts? What have you got? I first heard the word normies said by an Australian truther, and in that accent, it doesn't sound so bad, said Awakening with Reiki. I see. Yes, TNT did try to control me. Absolutely, they did. TPV is where you and I met, Sonia, on that first info day, says B. I remember. It was in Camden. And actually the potential again at the People's Voice was tremendous. Yes, Merv, I've had a very interesting life experience. Yes, I have. Mrs. Pirate said, it's such a shame. It was brilliant when it began. Yes, absolutely. Who won? Oh, actually, I might be able to give you names right now. Let me check. Or I might have to give you them on Friday. Let me just see if I can get into my emails are not so easy for me to access anymore. It's a whole other story. Guys, we have winners. Oh my days. We have winners. Yes, we do. Let me see. Wait. Oh my days. Okay, right. We do. We have. Yes, you are first. How do I pronounce that? Demoravi. You are first. You absolutely are first. What you have to do is you have to send me your address to that email. You are the very first winner of one of these t-shirts, right? I've got so many emails from this morning. I had to just check I've got the right one. And that is correct, isn't it? Yes, because all the rest came after it. And the other one is, Bernadette. Wait, oh, Bernadette, is that you, B? We met at TPV on that first info date. You've just won the other blooming t-shirt. Right, Bernadette, you send me your details. And so that is Amarovia, or whatever his name is, and Bernadette, send me your addresses and I will dispatch those t-shirts. Congratulations. Well done. Well done all. Well done all. There you go. Struggled to get on TNT. Whoop, whoop. Synchronized souls. And she's not even here. Who's not even here? Congratulations. You are the proud owner of a Weed for Vendetta shirt. MB, you are naughty. You are naughty. Right, we are closing, darlings. It's 11:11. It is 11:11, right? Can I just say, there's a story that I'm going to bring you later this week, which I've been looking into to do with Sadler's Wells. I went to Sadler's Wells earlier this year to see an old friend of mine, John ZD. He does the break-in convention. Well, that is currently having to deal with some nonsense to do with the Israel lobby. I'm going to bring you that full story at the end of this week. And by the way, I just have to talk about this, and that is, on anybody been to the Shell Grotto in Margate? You have to go. It's highly recommended. Not something I would necessarily do on my own initiative, but I'm so glad my daughter organized it when we were there for my birthday. What an amazing experience is this ornate subterranean passageway. It's a Shell Grotto in Margate, Kent, in England. Almost all the surface area of the walls and roof is covered in mosaics created entirely of seashells, totaling about 2,000 square foot. And it's a grotto is entirely underground. Steps at the upper end lead into a passage about 3 feet 6 inches wide, roughly hewn out of the chalk, winds down in a kind of snake-like serpentine fashion until it reaches an arch. And it's very curious. It's mind-bogglingly beautiful. Being in there was just this incredible experience. And there's 2 arches on the sides leading from the rotunda, which is at the bottom. And the story behind it is really curious. There's a number of different stories, right? So basically, a similar type cave was found in Rome in 2007. And all these shells are made into mosaics. It's absolutely beautiful. If you've not been there, I highly recommend it. You can also find details about it online. There's 4 theories about it. We know that roughly it was actually, most historians agree that it was actually found around 1835. And this was when a man was extending his cottage next to it, Bellevue Cottage, a detached residence. And he was essentially doing some alterations. And then they found behind this hard wall this incredible hidden treasure. And there are a number of theories about it. Some people believe it was sort of a rich man's folly. Others believe it was a prehistoric astronomical calendar, which I think is wonderful, given it's a full moon today. Other people believe it was a meeting place for sea witchcraft, and others believe it was connected with the Knights Templar, which, of course, or Freemasonry. Both of them are connected to each other. The details are just stunning, absolutely stunning. You go in there and you feel immediately you're in a spiritual place. And actually, we bought various things, including a fridge magnet, where in like, I think 1930s or whatever, they were conducting a seance in there. And it really is quite mind-blowing. And as I say, it's not normally the kind of place that I would be tempted to go to, but I was so pleasantly surprised. Sometimes it's really important to step out of your comfort zone, isn't it? And just do something completely different. And it was absolutely wonderful. And also on the same day, we went to Dreamland. Dreamland is hilarious, huge fun fair, completely different to the Shell Grotto. And Dreamland once featured in Only Fools and Horses. I don't know if you remember. Many people, I'm sure, watching this stream will remember Only Fools and Horses. Huge comedy with David Jason and Nicholas Lyndhurst. But they had a day out at the beach in Margate, and Dreamland became quite famous for that. But we went in the haunted house and everything, and it was just so much fun just to get away from being me, you know what I mean, for a moment. And I loved it. On Friday, I want to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let me know what you think about the hierarchy of needs. The idea being, it was Maslow, a psychologist, described it. It was about human needs arranged in a hierarchy, a triangular hierarchy. Not saying anything about the triangle, because who knows what that could actually really relate to. But we're going to be talking about that on Friday. But I want to end this show about the importance of turning the other cheek. I think I said to you last week that one of the memes on my phone is, you don't have to react to everything you notice. Because that's the problem with this world, right? We feel the need to jump up and down and react to everything that we notice. We don't need to. So I have learned over the years the importance of turning the other cheek. And the expression itself, it comes from the Sermon on the Mount. It's in the Bible. And it was said to have been said by Jesus, you have heard that it was said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And I'm not religious, as many of you know, but it's also important to understand that this passage has a deeper level. I don't think for a second that Jesus was saying, allow people to beat you up and do nothing about it. He doesn't mean invite more abuse of yourself. It really, what he's saying is actually a demonstration of strength, and that is what I've come to understand about the importance of turning the other cheek. And anybody will see a lot of my social media has a picture of me in profile, and it's me turning the other cheek, because I just simply will not get embroiled in nonsense that exists online where people want to fight. And I used to be a fighter, and I still am to a degree, but I have learned the importance of turning the other cheek, and this has improved my emotional and psychological well-being. You know what? It can mean responding to insults without retaliation, but so what? If that person is of no consequence to you, let them insult away. Like I said, stop sending me what absolute lowlifes, internet gossips have to say about me. I turn the other cheek. I'm not interested. I've got bigger fish to fry. See what I'm saying? That's how I've learned to turn the other cheek. And some say that turning the other cheek is a way to overcome evil with good, and that it can actually unmask the absurdity that comes with hatred. And I agree, because when you have somebody who's like just firing at you, right? They're saying this and this about you, and you're not responding. Who's looking like the idiot? That's right. The lone voice that keeps attacking you. But there are other ways to turn the other cheek as well. And many other people, I've talked to people who are spiritual and about forgiveness. Many people use it for forgiveness, you know, about, you know, where they've been hurt by somebody, no matter how kind of insignificantly so or severe. Obviously, hurt is hurt to us, but some people find that they are able to find greater solace in just being able to say, do you know what, that's what that person is about, and being philosophical about it and moving on. So I think that's very important. Now I use turning the other cheek not just for my peace of mind, but as an act of defiance. Yes, that's right. Because when you turn the other cheek, you take control of that power dynamic. You do, right? And you force people to see you in a new light. Because if you're not all going backwards and forwards, you give them space for people to see who you really are. And so I'm really interested in that. I'm really interested in this act of defiance. But obviously, I am not applying it to all situations. You know, like huge societal injustices, we absolutely should not turn the other cheek. We should confront them head on. I'm talking about things that are within your power, within your domain, that you can do something about, that if you get yourself engaged in something, you've already lost. Because you, honestly, if you start to argue with a lowlife, you'll already bring yourself down to their level, and you're worth more than that. You're worth way more than that. So I really think there is a power in learning to turn the other cheek. And why have you brought me to 11:20, you people? Can't believe it. Brett says the meek will inherit the earth, but the bold rule it. Beyond Belief says, nah, stand up for yourself. No, that's not what I'm saying, Beyond Belief. I'm not saying don't stand up for yourself. I've always stood up. Not only do I stand up for myself, I stand up for other people. I'm saying use it appropriately and see the power in it. Don't automatically assume that saying, do you know what, you're just not worth it is weakness. It's not. And I think we have to get out of that. Discernment, says Fred. Who's my brethren, Robin? Fred, yeah, discernment is important. Awakening with Reiki says, absolutely agree, Sonia. And again, honestly, it isn't about, I love that, Rachel. Love your enemies. It will drive them nuts. Loving thy enemy is the hardest one for me, says Wakebong. It is hard. It is absolutely hard. There's people I can't stand, and I do not allow them into my space any more than necessary, right? I'll have minimal dealing with them. No, of course not, Beyond Belief. And that's literally an insane thing to say. So you see a low life attacking someone else, you turn the other cheek and ignore it. No, Beyond Belief, no. But I'm certainly not going to engage in nonsense online. That's one example of where I turn the other cheek. I'm the first person, trust me, in public situations where an injustice is taking place, who stands up and is counted, right? So what's that? You were worth many sparrows. Trying to play with the cat. Crazy Bunny has got the cat. She's got a toy under her arm at this moment in time to keep the cat happy. Rising above it. Yeah, rise. Keep rising. Let's keep rising, people. Important to keep rising. Let us not be dragged down to low energies. But of course we should protect other people. Of course we should defend other people. Cat, yes, that's exactly it. Pick your battles in a nutshell. Exactly it. Marcel has just joined us. Happy Monday. How was the amazing, easy breezy, beautiful breakfast show? It was amazing. Look, see how we are living. Sonia going for the full 3 hours day. No, I'm not. I've got to go. I have got to go. I have got so much to do. So let me just say, turning the other cheek isn't submissive. It's defiance, right? It's saying, actually, I'm better than this. Okay, I'm better than this. I am above and beyond you. You are not worth it. And obviously, you, as somebody just so accurately said, you pick your battles. It's not something that can be applied on all occasions, right? And this full moon week, be as defiant as you absolutely want to be. And I love that quote by Roy H. Williams. I'm just going to repeat it again. And that is, turning the other cheek isn't submissive, it's defiant. And I love it. And I love you all. Thank you for joining us today. Those T-shirts will be sent out. And I promise I'm going to get some more comp presents for you all, because you're worth it. Have a fantastic week, or I will see you on Friday. Love you all. Thank you for being in the chat and joining us today. Thank you for the 2 mods. Lovely to see Shim.